here we are. Second full week of February, and the Kansas City Chiefs are still the champions of the National Football League. Won the Super Bowl against the 49ers this past Sunday. Welcome in to another episode of Where the Game Lives On, the official podcast of the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. I'm your host, Noah Tucker. I'm not joined by Byron Shive today. I am joined, though, by our Director of Operations, Taylor Frederich. Give me one word to describe that Super Bowl.
Legendary. I think that might be a good one to start. It was surprising to say the least. I think for a lot of people dating back to kind of that mid-December, how everything was going, but legendary.
Yeah. Real quick before we get into it, if you are joining us in hopes of hearing from Justin Britt this week, we had to do a quick reschedule. We recently lost a good dear friend of the Hall of Fame who is also very close with Justin. So he could not join us this week. He is going to be on next week. So be sure to tune in for that. But yeah, I think legendary is a good word. I agree with you. You think back to mid-December. I remember you and I having a conversation right before the playoffs started, and we were not really too excited with what we'd seen as we went into the playoffs, and we're not skeptical is probably a fair word in terms of what could be done by this Kansas City Chiefs team. But as usual, they have a tendency to prove you wrong. So
just once the playoff picture kind of shook out and you knew who you were playing, you kind of saw the path to the Super Bowl. You knew that you had a home game. Anytime anybody comes into Arrowhead, you feel, you have the confidence of the home field advantage. Mm-hmm. With that being said, you had the, quote unquote, the best offense, most electric offense in football coming to Arrowhead. So that is, it kind of started off right there as, whoa, the road to the playoffs or the road to the Super Bowl may not be as clear as it has been in the past. Again, Mahomes has never played a road playoff game. He silenced everybody regarding that. But yeah, just the road to the playoffs that they had to, or to the Super Bowl, that they had to overcome. Again, playing I think that I saw a stat that said something that I think they played like the second, third, and fourth offense, top offenses in the NFL. Wow. In the playoff run. And I mean, that just goes to show that, the Chiefs are, don't let them hang around. Yeah. You let them hang around and they'll cook you.
They know how to get it done for sure. There was a lot of questions with their road to the Super Bowl, playing on the road. Obviously the doubters were saying a lot about Patrick in that regard. And I'm not one to glaze Patrick Mahomes. I grew up on Peyton Manning and I grew up on Tom Brady, and I'm not going to sit here and say he's the GOAT, but he constantly just proves people wrong. He can't, he can't do this. He does it. He can't win on the road. He wins two against two of the best teams in the league. And you got Andy Reid, you got Travis Kelce, you got this great defense, but Patrick Mahomes is the X factor. He's the super X factor. And just like that final drive in overtime, you have a fourth down play and you run a little option route and he just takes care of it like it's nobody's business. And that's how you go down and just win it like it's just another day.
Right? And he did it in what you might call an untraditional way. I mean, he was the leading rusher for the Chiefs in that suit. Yeah. I mean, he did it with his legs, and before you think he's the gunslinger and he's the guy who, but again, he adapts to the environment. He, gave took what the defense, gave him, and was able to capitalize. But, what's interesting to me about this team in particular is you go back 2 years and you talk about the Tyreek Hill trade, right? Tyreek Hill gets traded, and then all of a sudden, this speculation of where the Chiefs were going at that point was kind of like, hey, big question mark. You lose your deep field threat. Where are we going to go from here? But what's funny is you look at the results of that Tyreek Hill trade. That gets you Trent McDuffie. That gets you Karlaftis. So again, all of a sudden, we rode the Super Bowl in the back of the defense, man. And that Tyreek Hill trade at first, hey, hand up, I was the guy who was like, man, are we really gonna are we really gonna lose that?
Yeah. Which he's the best receiver in the NFL. He still is,
MVP like season this past year. And again, to the fruits of that trade to really come and be a part of the Super Bowl, I think was extra special for really front office and really just kind of the mental for the for the Chiefs. It doesn't matter who you put out there, as long as 15's behind center, you're gonna have a chance.
Yeah. Looking at this team, the dynamic of this team, and obviously they kind of had their lulls during the regular season and all of this, and it's a different dynamic as a team, right? They're a defensive team as opposed to just we're going to hang 40 on you and win. But I think when it came down to it, what this team could do better than anything is just find ways to win, right? They went on the road to Buffalo. They win that game totally differently than they do in Baltimore. In Baltimore, it's disciplined football, it's consistency, playing all 4 quarters, and then you get a game like this with the 49ers where you have to stick it out. It's a 4-quarter game. You're down double digits, and you kind of have to come from behind. They just found ways to win, whether it was, being more disciplined or having the ball last, I guess, right? Which we can talk about that even, because I've been surprised by the amount of analysis of the new playoff rules. I was never opposed to them. I don't know about you. I thought it was great to not leave it to a coin toss, but then people are like, oh, do you take the ball first? I don't know.
There, of course, everybody's going to scrutinize Shanahan's decision to not, again, obviously they didn't win the Super Bowl. So again, that decision is pretty well highlighted. But I can see both sides of it. I can see why Shanahan wants the ball, because they want the ball third, right? They kind of expected Kansas City to score, kind of expected the 49ers to go score, and I guess the Chiefs to match. And then, hey, all of a sudden, you got the ball third. All you got to do is go downfield and kick a field goal. So I understand both logics, but I'm sure that people have seen the Mahomes interview afterwards. The Chiefs were going to go for 2. I mean, if the 49ers score a touchdown, Kansas City was going for 2, and they were going to win the ball game, or at least attempt to win the ball game at that point. So going second, obviously you just have, what you need to do, so there's
it's
that.
4 down territory, that whole drive.
And not only that, that's one big thing that you could sit there and think about Kyle Shanahan's decision is picking to have the ball first. You give Patrick Mahomes not 3 downs, but 4 downs.
Totally change the play call.
They're not punting anymore. They're not punting. You give Mahomes 4, you give Mahomes 4 downs, and probably not the smartest decision at the time. But the one thing that I saw that the Chiefs did this year in the playoffs that kind of was a Patriots thing back in the day that you saw during all of their runs was teams just imploded on themselves. Yeah. It wasn't like, and that's a credit to our coaching staff, the Chiefs coaching staff, and Spags, at defensive coordinator. That's one of those things, man. He just sat back and just waited for teams to implode. Yeah. Not giving Christian McCaffrey the ball. Lamar Jackson in the AFC Championship game throwing the ball. Yeah. What? And there are just some things that they set back, and it was meticulous, and the game plan was just phenomenal throughout the playoff run.
It's very apparent that they've been there.
Absolutely. And
nobody, they're down double digits. Nobody looks nervous. It's just like, we got 4 quarters to play, and then overtime.
Been here before, but you kind of talk about the overtime rule. You're going to see something change, I think, from this past overtime, and it's going to be, I guess the way the game or the overtime is played might not change, but I think that you're going to have to do something. The clock is irrelevant. If they're doing the same overtime rules moving forward, they don't need to time, because if the clock would have ran out in that overtime, it doesn't matter. The Chiefs come back out, and it's the start of the second quarter of the overtime. Yeah. So again, the clock's kind of irrelevant in that situation. Yeah. Another thing that Chris and I actually kind of talked about was a little bit strange that you play the regular season under a completely different set of overtime rules. That to me, again, I'm not saying that's an excuse. It's been well reported that the 49ers didn't talk about it. whatever. No excuses there. The rule was put into place 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Everybody had ample time to know the rule. But again, I think that's a little bit confusing in terms of keep that overtime consistent, throughout the entire year. And then that way, again, there's none of this.
We had to look up at the board.
Exactly. So that, but so I think there might be something that comes from it. Who knows? They might change it again. But I think that you will see something.
I like what you said about getting rid of the time. And if you carry that over to the regular season, then you get rid of ties. There's no ties anymore, because if there's no time, it's not just like it's going to expire. Right. Somebody's got to score to end in the game. But going back to Shanahan's decision, it's easy for us to sit on the couch and say, I would have given the other team the ball, right? I don't speculate his thinking, his process of we want the ball first so that we can have, if it's a score and a score, we can have the ball last, right? So it was just the execution of that. If that's where you're at and that's what you want to do and you take the ball first, why do you decide to kick a field goal? Right, exactly. What is it, 4th and 4 from the 7? Yeah. Go for it. You're right.
Absolutely. I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, at that point, you're you're reversing, right? Yeah. You're sitting there and saying, hey, this is what we want to do. This was our plan.
Now we're going to settle for a field.
Settle for a field goal, which, that's coming from a guy who is 0-3 in the Super Bowl or whatever it is and can't get the big one done. Maybe it's 0-4 now. I don't know.
Yeah. But, I think it's 0-3. Yeah.
So, that again, that's, they play it over again. It might work out for him. It might work out exactly like Shanahan wanted. They get the ball, the third time, go down and score and win it. But, again, unfortunately, you put 15 in the game and, overtime or late game situation and finds a way to get it done.
Yeah. He's the best player in the National Football League, and he is going to, at one point or another, be in the discussion for the greatest quarterback of all time.
And again, I think that you mentioned it earlier. Big Chiefs fan, I was always very hesitant to even compare Brady and Mahomes. Even before this, there were some rumblings. Oh, he's doing this, after he's got to the AFC Championship game 6, whatever it is, there was kind of that, hey, he's starting to be brought up in discussion. I was never one to jump on that bandwagon, I guess, and throw him in the greatest of all time discussion. Yeah. Now I'm kind of shifting to the other side of the fence a little bit. It's got to start coming along. It's got to start. The conversation has got to be there. Yeah. I mean, in such a short window of him being in the league, just a tremendous amount of success. And, it's exciting that I do think that we have, the Chiefs have a lot of the same team coming back. I think there's some questions around, obviously salary cap, Chris Jones, Snead, getting those guys locked in would be fantastic. And, Brett Veach has worked his magic many a time over the past, 5-6 seasons. So if anybody can get it done, I have a little bit of hope that, we can get them signed. And, why would you want to go anywhere else at this point? You have, I use the word legendary. Nobody in NFL history has ever three-peated. Yeah. Give yourself a shot at least. I'm not saying that I'm predicting it, but give yourself a shot, right? Yeah. I mean, so stick with them, I guess you can always not blame the guys for chasing the bag if that's what they want to do, but chase the rings. Hopefully they'll stick around.
That's kind of what happens with winning though, right? Is you have success and then guys think they need to get paid.
Well, and and not saying this is a right decision, wrong decision, or otherwise, but a lot of those guys, Chris Jones's legacy is, he's got 3 Super Bowl rings. He's got this. He might want to just go get his payday. Yeah,
right off into the sunset.
Right, and I hope that doesn't happen, Chris. I hope it doesn't happen.
Chris, are you watching our podcast?
but who knows? But again, I think that you have a lot of the same team coming back. And, I think that with the way that this year shook out, there were few peaks and a lot of valleys.
Yeah.
And you still end up on top. So I think that the fact that team and that group went through the 2023 season, I think that just kind of gives you a little bit of hope that, hey, they're going to stick together and try to do it again.
Yeah. And that kind of, outlook on the future really puts into question what this dynasty will look like going forward. I think it's really cool though, how it's the tone is being set from the top. Andy Reid, there's all this speculation about, is he going to retire? Is he going to move on? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, why would you? You have the best quarterback in the National Football League. You guys are back-to-back champions. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. And so you hope that only, just sets the tone for the rest of the organization. And guys are like, no, we have something special here. Like, we need to buckle down, cinch the belt, and see if we can go get another.
Get after it. And, and again, I think that that goes a long ways. If Andy would have sat here and said, I'm out or I'm retiring after this year and he hangs it up, I think that obviously opens the door. It's like college. It's like, your college coach leaving in college, right?
Yeah.
It kind of gives you, you not saying they went there to play for Andy, but hey, they know that their success level, with Andy at the helm, could have a higher ceiling than it could be with anybody else. So, as long as, again, you keep him around and, no telling how far this dynasty will
you can
go.
say it.
Yeah. I mean,
it
feels, again, you hope that it continues. I talk with my dad, after the Super Bowl, and he waited a long time, for these Super Bowls to happen. And
and even people like us, millennials, I never would have thought the Chiefs would be the best team in the NFL.
No way.
Yeah.
I sat there and I made the comment to him. I said, I hope whenever I'm your age, we have gone through this multiple times. Not just, I certainly hope that I'm not looking back in 40 years going, man, I'd like to win another. I'd like to win another one, Yeah. It's just exciting times, for Chiefs Kingdom, and I'm sure that the festivities and the parade that's going to be happening today in Kansas City is going to be epic.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be watching it on my phone at work. Sorry about that, boss. My dad's the same though. My dad is 60. I think he was telling me he was 5 maybe when they won their first Super Bowl. But so, you kind of remember it, I'm sure. But at the same time, they've waited a long time. And now it's really cool to be sitting here. And obviously we're with the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. And to see the success that's coming out of, Kansas City right now, it's kind of the mecca of the football world. They've put themselves, positioned themselves on top. And I do think that we were amongst those people, or certainly I was amongst those people who had a little bit of fatigue related to the Patriots winning so often. Yeah.
Now I'll greatly take,
what a great place to be.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take that side of it, every single time. But again, I think you'll have that a bunch. If they didn't have targets on their backs already, there are 31 other teams in the NFL right now that are going to make dadgum sure that Kansas City doesn't do it again. So the bullseye on the back has just gotten bigger. Patrick Mahomes has now put himself under a microscope even more, even more now. It's similar to the LeBron James thing, when LeBron has a bad game, or, back kind of in his prime or heyday, whenever he had a bad game, people, were very, very quick to ridicule, greatest of all time, what, so I think that you have that, but I do think that he accepts that role, whether the Chiefs, want to accept the role as the villain of the NFL, they better start to, because that's exactly where they position themselves.
Yeah, and I agree with you in terms of the Patriots, and obviously that's the most recent success now, prior to the Chiefs. There's going to be those comparisons, and it's just like I just said though. What a great place to be, right? I mean, if it comes with the territory.
Yep.
That's all there is to it.
It does.
I mean, in Patrick Mahomes, you're right. If this is his villain arc or whatever you want to call it, so be it. I mean, people, if you, I don't know, if you can't beat him, join him, I guess. I have no idea. But, and speaking of, we're talking about the future and retaining talent and stuff. Somebody will lose their job if Patrick Mahomes ever takes a snap in a different jersey than a Kansas City Chiefs jersey.
Absolutely.
He has got to be a Chief for life.
I think that he wants to be. I don't know why he wouldn't want to.
He built that $8 million mansion up there.
You know why he wouldn't want to be. But he's something that we talk about people leaving. The Chiefs, whether it be for various reasons, for salary cap issues, or wanting to go elsewhere for whatever reason, financial gain or whatever. You're also going to have probably some outside eyes at Arrowhead going, hey, wait a second. I'd like to go there. I'd like to go there and play. So, there's a list of free agents, this year. Mike Evans, some of those that you could go after. I think I saw a little earlier that T. Higgins was possibly being franchise tagged by Cincinnati.
Oh yeah.
Some people like that might be sitting on the outside going, hey, I'm, with Higgins, he's automatically number 2 behind Jamar Chase. He might go say, hey, I can be the guy. I can be the, outside capable. Of Kelsey. So again, there's, you might have some of that, outside eyes looking in going, hey, Kansas City is probably not a bad place to end up, especially those vets who might be a little later in their career who are ring chasing a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
I tell you what, whatever moves they make, whatever may transpire, I'm going to take everything with a grain of salt. Because I don't know if you remember, but here back at the trade deadline, I talked to you about how god awful of a look it was for the organization to let go of McCole Hardman and then bring him back within the same season. And look who wins the game, who has the game winning catch in the Super Bowl, to send us on.
I mean, again, that I'll go back to 2 years ago and thinking, how on earth are you letting Tyreek Hill walk out of this building? You do anything that you can to keep him. But hey, I'll keep my mouth shut on any of those front office moves. And again, you talked about the trade deadline. Not only are you trading, McCole Hardman or letting him go, releasing, trading him, whatever it is. But you're not, it was so glaring. The Chiefs had issues catching the football, right? They led the league in drops. They didn't do anything at the trade deadline to solve those problems, right? And so I remember sitting here talking with you about it going, this is going to be nobody's fault but the front office's fault because they didn't do anything to go help the on-field production where we were really, really lacking. Yeah. They didn't do anything.
But then what happens?
They
right?
just, they didn't do anything. They sat back, they waited, they, used the regular, they used the regular season. I don't know if it was to figure out the game plan for the playoffs or what it was, but something started clicking once the playoffs started rolling, and they looked like they did last season. Yeah. And the seasons before that. And it, they were constantly left hanging around. Yeah. And that's the thing that you can't do with Kansas City, because again, time and time again, that they've proved that if you let them hang around, they're just bury you at the end.
Yeah, I feel like I know ball and know stuff well enough, but it humbles me honestly quite a bit, because I feel like the Chiefs, we've been here, we know what we have to do. Like it's the Aaron Rodgers, just relax, right? Because they don't get anybody at the trade deadline to help kind of get that consistent pass catcher. But what happens? Rice comes on, gets really comfortable on the second half of the season. MVS kind of helps, get us a little bit of a deep ball threat. And
he played huge in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I mean, against Baltimore. I mean, what to the guy who I had no confidence in, and I think that's just your trust. Patrick started to trust these guys. Yeah. Which I think that was
that ball that he threw at the end of the game. Was it against Baltimore where they had that big conversion?
Yeah.
and he just threw it up over the top, and
Perfect.
Valdez-Scantling came down with it.
So again, you don't make those throws unless you're confident in your, in your guys. So it just, Rice, whenever everything was not going right for the team, he was a rookie spark that you certainly didn't think that you were going to need to count on, but you did. You leaned on him, towards the end, and even through some of the losses, that happened in December or November. I mean, the last 2 months of the regular season, it was just
shaky.
Yeah, it's 2-6, 2-6, 3-6, maybe it was. I don't know, but it was just. I mean, after that, the loss to the Eagles at Arrowhead, you go on a bye, and then they just came back, and it was awful. So, just a testament to the grind to the grind of the season and the stick to it. With the current guys that the roster had, and like we just talked about, I was shocked that no moves were made. But hey, they did it with the bunch that they wanted to do it with, and I think that makes this one even sweeter. And again, the first one always awesome, right? And then you kind of set that, okay, we're pretty good, and then you keep going back, and then that second one kind of you're like, all right, not saying that winning 2 Super Bowls is easy, very tough, but that jump from 2 Super Bowls to 3, I think it feels significant. Yeah. Like it just feels very significant in terms of that legacy. I'm not saying that you can luck out to winning 2 Super Bowls. I'm not saying that, but that jump from 2 to 3, I think is it brings you up to that next level.
This one definitely rings on the perseverance and the patience and guys just staying bought in. And I think that's what helps make it feel like that. And, you're talking about guys like Rice, bright future for that kid. I mean, even if we don't go get a big name in the offseason, I have no doubt that he can help carry a receiving core. So,
and again, he's established himself as somebody who I think, he gained Mahomes' trust early, and if I'm him, I don't want to do anything to hinder or shatter that trust, because he could obviously make Rice's career very, very fruitful for him.
Well, and I think it's some of those things that really helped kind of, bring them along throughout the season. At the beginning of the year, Rice was running very basic, simple route trees, wasn't necessarily a figure piece in the offense. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're calling plays for this guy. Like we're getting him bubble screens, getting him out in space, and he's delivering.
Yeah. And that's, you go from being a third, fourth option in an offense to arguably at times your number one guy to go to just because of how defenses would play Kelsey. And he was a guy that you want to have the ball.
And other than Kelsey, he's the only guy that you're going to throw a one-on-one jump ball to or a back shoulder. And so that just shows, right? This is a guy that he's gained the trust. The coordinators know that they want to involve him in the offense, and he's going to be a crucial piece. And I'll say this, the Chiefs were not the best team on the field Sunday night. The 49ers are a better team, but the Chiefs knew how to win the game, how to actually just come out with more points than their opponent.
I'm not sure that they were the best team on the field their last 3 games.
Yeah.
Again, they, arguably were outplayed certainly by the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore, the Chiefs didn't score in the second half of the AFC Championship game. So we went to the second half of the AFC Championship game and the first half of the Super Bowl, we went with no touchdowns, 3 total points. You tell me that stat before the game or before
we're not winning.
You're not winning. I mean, and nobody is. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter who it is. So the ability, again, they wrote it on the backs of the defense, and it's something that again, Spags and the game plan, Bolton, a Mizzou guy right there. Again, we always like to see Missouri guys on the rosters of these teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, it's just spectacular. I think, the good news that's good for us in terms of the defense and Spags.
Yep.
He's not right, wrong, or otherwise. He's not a sought after head coaching candidate, right? I mean, he might, why would he want to go anywhere else? Just kind of like we were talking about. He's a defensive coordinator, and you got to keep those guys around. So I think that's beneficial. You keep Andy, you keep Spags. I think Matt Nagy's going to stick around as well. So you keep your core coaching staff in place, and the guys for the most part I think are going to stay the same. So who knows? Well,
I think this episode has definitely taken shape of trust in the Chiefs. Yeah, trust in the Chiefs. The future is bright. Who knows where this dynasty will go? Obviously, they are cemented as a dynasty now. But hey, just enjoy this one. KC be rocking today at the parade, and anybody that's there, represent it with pride, and we'll see where the future goes. So,
and let's be honest, this was written in the stars 2 or 3 months ago when Miss Taylor Swift jumped on the Chiefs bandwagon. Who knows if she'll be at the parade today, but wouldn't that be something if she was hoisting that Lombardi trophy on one of those parade floats? Yeah,
that would break the internet. We almost made it. We almost made it the entire episode talking about the Chiefs Super Bowl and not mentioning Taylor Swift, but we had to. Hey, we thank you for joining us here on Where the Game Lives On. We've got new episodes every Wednesday. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Keep up with us on social media. You can see everything that's going on around the Hall of Fame. Whether we're talking about it here or not, we're always breaking down the latest things in sports in Missouri, including Super Bowl 58 champion Kansas City Chiefs. Next week, we will see you in studio with special guest Justin Britt, so be sure to tune in for that, and we will catch you next time on another episode of Where the Game Lives On.